Okay, well, Dean Elliott, I really want to thank you for offering me the opportunity to talk to you about the new academic excellence fee. I've had a lot of interaction with students,
Hmm.
and as you can understand, let's say unhappy, very questioning, don't understand what's going on. There's few facts out there, and we'd like to know a little bit more about the nature of the fee, what it's going to be used for,
Okay.
where it came from, and what we can do better in the future on terms of communication. So,
All good questions, all important questions, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to have this conversation with you, which we'll share with the students, and equally importantly, to make a promise to you and to your classmates that these conversations will be ongoing over the course of the next several weeks and months as students come back to campus. So the academic excellence fees are a way to bring resources to the college to let us do things that we think we need to do to make the programs that you're in and that your classmates are in better. And one of the things that you can reasonably ask is, uh, what does that mean in which programs? And so we're talking about the MS programs, we're talking about the MBA programs, and we're talking about a realization on our part that over time we've fallen behind the curve in terms of providing you the kind of support for career services, the kind of support on the admissions end, the kind of support in academic advisement. We know from watching wait lists, how long does it take someone to get to see a career counselor? How long does it take to see a course counselor to get the advice you need to get access to courses? The wait lines are too long, the wait times are too long, and people give up. They don't get the support they need to prepare themselves in the ways that they deserve. So one reality is that we haven't been continuing to produce the kind of services that everyone needs. A second aspect of this is that academic excellence fees and tuition increases are two different ways that students end up paying more for their experience. And as it happens, both of those are controlled by the City University of New York and to some extent by the state of New York. So one of the realities is that we at Baruch College don't have total control over how these fees are levied, when they're levied, how they're collected, how they're communicated. And we feel some of the same frustration that the students do about certainly the timing of this one.
mm-hmm.
It's unfair to let people learn in August that the cost of the education they're going to begin in September has gone up by a significant percentage. Unfair, not our choice, not good practice. Um, the reality is that this fee, the student excellence fee, the academic excellence fee, goes back for years. For 4 or 5 years, we've been talking about the feeling that we're falling behind in terms of some of the services we can provide. And for 4 or 5 years, we've been talking about different groups of student leaders about what that might mean. So at one level, this decision is something that our students have been involved with throughout a series of years as we went through a planning process. And it wasn't the case necessarily that every student came together in a big town hall. It was the case that in our graduate curriculum committee and some of the student government activities, we had these conversations, and there was an awareness that there was an important need. Then you get to the question, how does that turn into a fee, right? So we make a proposal to the City University of New York. We make a proposal for tuition increase for an academic excellence fee or whatever, and we're told no. It's not the right time, it's not the right year, something else is happening. And so these things
You're
take
told no by the CUNY board.
well, sometimes by the CUNY board, sometimes by the state assembly, sometimes by the politicians. Because every one of these decision makers has an important role to play in delivering state-supported education. And one of the things we've seen across this country and in all of the major state systems is a reduction in the proportion of the cost of the education that is being borne by the state. And so we've watched that play out in every state. We've watched it play out particularly in the last 2 years. And so not having been in every room with every one of these conversations, it's my impression that conversations that we had had for a long time finally took hold this year in a way different, because the holes in the state budgets were larger and the needs were more extreme, because we had already had 5 years of major cuts. So we have experienced that at the college, and we've had less support from the state to do the work that we want to do for our students. So all of these are moving pieces and moving parts. They end up affecting the timing of a decision and the size of a decision. So all of a sudden, the environment was right this year for the state to say, okay, tuition can go up, for the university to say, okay, and we will install some academic excellence fees, because otherwise we're not going to be able to do the things we need to do and the students deserve.
One of the questions you brought up was about this has been a process for many years, and you've gone back and forth and included some of the students. There is a bit of a question that comes from the students, from the GSA. This goes back to communication, that students were left out. There were comments, I'm not sure how much you can speak to them, about a student-led legal action. That leaves a bunch of questions. Some people outside the circle are saying, well, was that the GSA? Was it not the GSA? People from the GSA last year don't recall being being a part of, I think it was in June was when it was brought up at the curriculum meeting here on campus. Can you talk a little bit about, and maybe this goes more towards the communication issue, but what happened over the past 6 months? Because this current crop from the GSA seems to have been excluded, or at least not informed.
One of the things that you could say about this is that some of these proposals went to CUNY a year ago, right? So the proposals were up there, they've been talked about, they've been discussed, but they languished. You talk about the student concern and the litigation over the tuition piece. That was not a GSA activity, as I understand it. It's my belief that it was a small group of undergraduate students who brought the case. It was a CUNY-wide case. It led to an injunction by a judge, all of which delayed everything for about a month. And it delayed the messaging for a month, because until that was resolved, you didn't know what it was you had to say, right? So imagine that back in May, the state and the trustees and so forth decide, okay, we're going to approve these things. Then they face litigation. A judge invokes a subpoena, or invokes a stay, and you don't know how it's going to turn out. So we, in trying to craft a message to you, the student body, graduate and undergraduate, different messages, full-time MBAs, part-time MBAs, MS students, all different messages, didn't know exactly what our message was, because we didn't know what the final resting place would be for these fees. In a similar way, you and your classmates are asking, quite appropriately, what will this mean tomorrow in terms of my experience as a student? And I know that there's been some frustration about the fact that we haven't given you a shopping list that says, these are the things that will be different. We've given you sort of a categorical description of the kinds of things that might be different. Why is that? As I sit here and talk with you today, we know what the size of the fees are. We know approximately how many students are subject to the fees. We don't have, from the City University of New York, a full budget allocation for how that money will be used.